They told Princess Diana she had 6 months to leave Kensington Palace. The royal lawyers sat across from her with eviction papers, smiling as they explained she was no longer important enough to live in royal property. With William and Harry watching their mother being told she wasn't worthy of her own home, Diana had no choice but to acknowledge the notice. But what the palace didn't know was that Diana had already started researching something that would turn their certainty into the most humiliating defeat in modern royal history. The February rain hammered against the windows of the solicitor's office in central London. Diana sat in a straight-back chair, hands folded in her lap, fingers pressed white against each other. Across the polished mahogany table sat 3 royal lawyers in dark suits, their faces professionally blank. Behind them, Crown Estate representatives watched, with barely concealed satisfaction, occasionally whispering to each other and glancing at Diana as if she were already gone. This was the housing allocation meeting, 3 months after the divorce was finalized. After months of negotiations, threats, and leaked stories to the press, painting her as difficult and demanding, this was where another piece of her life would be stripped away. Diana had already lost so much: her title of Her Royal Highness, her security detail that had protected her for years, most of her loyal staff who'd been reassigned. Now they were deciding what little she'd be allowed to keep. William sat to her left, 17 years old but trying desperately to look composed, like the man he would one day become. His hands were clenched into fists under the table, knuckles white with tension. Harry, 15, kept glancing between his mother and the lawyers, jaw tight with barely suppressed anger, leg bouncing nervously under the table. She told them they didn't have to come, that she could handle this meeting alone, but they'd insisted. "We're not leaving you alone with them," William had said that morning, his voice carrying a protectiveness that reminded Diana he was nearly a man now. "They've taken enough from you. We're going to be there." The lead lawyer, Michael Thornton, cleared his throat. "Mrs. Spencer, we're here to discuss your continued residence at Kensington Palace." Diana noted the deliberate use of Mrs. Spencer. Not Princess Diana, they were making a point. Kensington Palace is Crown property maintained for working royals. Given your changed status, the Crown Estate has determined your current accommodation is no longer appropriate. We're offering alternative accommodation in Richmond. 4 bedrooms, private garden, suitable for your needs. William spoke up, voice tight. "That's half the size of where we live now." "William," Diana said softly, and he fell silent. "The transition timeline is 6 months. You'll need to vacate by August 15th. "And if I refuse?" Diana asked quietly. "Gerald," Fitzwilliam from Crown Estate smiled. "Then we'd be forced to pursue legal eviction proceedings. Unpleasant for everyone, particularly given media attention." The threat was clear: cooperate quietly or be publicly humiliated. "This is my home," Diana said, emotion entering her voice. "I've lived here 18 years. My children grew up here." "It's been a privilege," Thornton said smoothly, "but privileges for working royals cannot continue for private citizens." Diana looked at the papers, official notices, timelines, property descriptions. Everything presented as already decided. "I need time to consider this." "You have until week's end to sign the acknowledgement. If not, we proceed with formal eviction notices." As they left, Harry exploded in the car. "They can't do this. It's our home." "Harry, not here," Diana said, glancing at photographers who'd somehow learned about the meeting. She kept her face composed, but inside, humiliation burned. That evening, Diana sat in her Kensington Palace study, looking at walls holding photographs of William and Harry at every age: first steps, first day of school, birthdays, Christmas mornings. The desk was covered with correspondence from charities, thank you notes from families she'd helped, drawings from children in hospitals she'd visited. This wasn't just a house with expensive furniture and historic paintings. This was where she'd found herself after the marriage collapsed, where she'd rebuilt her life from the wreckage of a failed fairy tale, where her children felt safe when everything else in their world was uncertain, where she'd proven she could survive and even thrive despite everything the royal family had done to diminish her. And they wanted to take it away. Not because she couldn't afford it, she could. Not because she didn't need the space, she did, with 2 teenage sons and the constant stream of charity work, but because she was an embarrassment to them, a reminder of their failures, and they wanted her moved somewhere smaller, somewhere less visible, somewhere that wouldn't remind the world that she still existed. Rosa Martinez found her at midnight, still staring at the eviction timeline. "Can you fight it?" "I don't know. It's Crown property. They have every legal right." Diana picked up the notice. reallocation of royal resources, very civilized and completely ruthless. So what will you do? Find out if they actually have the right to do this. The next morning, Diana called Martin Shaw, the retired judge who'd helped her before. They're trying to evict me from Kensington Palace. I know, it's been circulating in legal circles. Can they do it legally? It's complicated. Crown property law is murky. You're divorced from the heir, but you're mother of the future king. That creates an unusual legal position. Unusual how? There might be arguments for your right to remain, but fighting the Crown estate is extraordinarily difficult. Unlimited resources. What if I'm willing to fight anyway? Then we need extensive research. Very thorough. You'll only get one chance. Diana spent the next 2 weeks practically living at the British Library, digging through dusty volumes and historical records of royal divorces and property allocations. She learned about queens who'd been stripped of their homes after falling from favor, princes who'd lost their accommodations when they became inconvenient, divorces throughout the centuries that had reshaped the royal property landscape. The research was exhausting, the old documents were difficult to read, and many led to dead ends. But Diana persisted, driven by the memory of Gerald Fitzwilliam's smug smile and the thought of William and Harry having to pack up their childhood home. Then she found something interesting. In 1936, when Edward VIII abdicated to marry Wallis Simpson, his mother, Queen Mary, retained her residence at Marlborough House despite no longer being queen consort. The precedent was set on the basis of her role as mother of the sovereign. Diana was mother of the future sovereign. She sat in the library reading room, staring at the old document, her heart pounding. Did the same principle apply? She hired property law specialist Catherine Fletcher. This will be a battle, Catherine warned. The Crown estate will argue you're not Queen Mother, not senior royal. They'll say the precedent doesn't apply. But it might. If we argue your role as mother of future king grants residency protections, never been tested this way, then let's test it. Over 4 months, while the palace assumed Diana was quietly preparing to move, perhaps already packing boxes in preparation for her forced departure, she was actually building a legal case that would fundamentally challenge centuries of assumptions about royal property rights. Catherine worked tirelessly with constitutional experts, historians who specialized in royal property law, and property specialists who understood the nuances of Crown estate operations. They examined every royal divorce throughout British history, every property dispute that had ever reached the courts, every precedent that might support Diana's right to remain. They built detailed arguments about her ongoing public service, about her unique constitutional role as guardian of the heir, about the critical importance of residential stability for William and Harry during their formative years. Diana also did something strategic that would prove crucial later. She meticulously documented everything about her life at Kensington Palace. Charity meetings held there, foreign dignitaries hosted, how often William and Harry used it as primary residence. She was proving Kensington wasn't just her home, it was her working base as mother of future king. "Mum, you're never here anymore," Harry complained one evening, always in meetings or at the library, working on something important, something affecting all of us. The move to Richmond? Working on making sure we don't have to move at all. Harry's eyes widened. "You think you can stop them?" "I can try." The deadline passed. Diana didn't sign. Instead, Catherine filed a legal challenge, arguing that as mother of the heir, Diana had residency rights superseding normal Crown property allocations. The palace's response was swift. Within hours, stories appeared. Diana refuses reasonable accommodation. Is Diana using children as leverage? Diana issued one statement. "I am seeking legal clarification of my residential rights as mother of Prince William and Prince Harry. I believe this is reasonable given unique circumstances." The legal battle intensified. Crown Estate hired 3 expensive lawyers, arguing Diana had no special rights, that Crown property allocation was at the monarch's discretion. Catherine countered with historical precedents, arguments about Diana's public service, documentation of how Kensington functioned as a working residence. 6 months into the legal battle, on a cold autumn afternoon, Martin made a discovery that would change everything. He was deep in the archives, researching property allocations during World War II when Britain's royal family had faced unprecedented challenges, when he found it, hidden in dusty, yellowed records from the 1940s. a document outlining specific residency protections for guardians of minor heirs to the throne. The language was archaic, written in the formal style of that era. The precedent had never been invoked in modern times, probably forgotten by everyone except the archivists who maintained the records. But it existed, clear and unambiguous in its intent. "Diana, you need to see this immediately," Martin said during an emergency meeting at Catherine's office, his hands actually shaking with excitement as he spread the fragile document across the table. "This changes everything. It says the primary guardian of an heir, that's you, has protected residence rights in royal property to facilitate their role. Can they argue William and Harry aren't minors? William's 17. Harry's 15, and it specifies until the heir reaches majority and establishes independent household. William hasn't done that. What do we do? File an amended motion incorporating this precedent, prepare for them to fight with everything they have." They did. The palace argued the document was obsolete, superseded by subsequent legislation, didn't apply to divorced spouses. But Catherine showed the document had never been repealed. Subsequent legislation didn't override it, and Diana's divorce status was irrelevant to her guardian role. The case went to judicial review. For 3 weeks, arguments were heard before judges who would determine Diana's future. Diana attended every day, sitting quietly, watching lawyers argue about her home. William wanted to attend, but Diana forbade it. This was her fight. The Crown Estate's lawyer was clear. The plaintiff is using her children to secure preferential treatment. She seeks to set a precedent allowing any divorced royal spouse to claim perpetual residence in Crown property. Catherine's response was devastating. "My client isn't seeking preferential treatment. She's seeking recognition of her unique constitutional position as mother of the future king. The Crown Estate wishes to treat her as ordinary divorced spouse, but she is not ordinary. She is raising the next monarch. That role should carry protections, including residential stability." On a gray November morning, Diana sat in her study waiting for the verdict. Rosa was with her. Paul Burrell had made tea. No one was drinking. The phone rang. Catherine's voice shook. "Diana, we won." Diana couldn't speak. "The judges ruled in your favor. They agreed the 1940s residency protection applies. They've ordered the Crown Estate to allow you to remain at Kensington Palace for as long as you maintain primary guardianship of Prince Harry, and recommended continued residence thereafter." "We won," Diana repeated numbly. "You get to keep your home." Media response was immediate. Headlines that had mocked Diana's impossible demands now read, "Diana wins historic victory over Palace. Crown Estate forced to back down." 2 weeks later, Gerald Fitzwilliam appeared at Kensington Palace. Paul showed him into Diana's study, the same study where she'd read eviction papers months ago. "Princess Diana, the Crown Estate accepts the court's ruling. You will not be required to vacate." "I know," Diana said simply. Gerald shifted uncomfortably. "There are those at the palace who believe this outcome is unfortunate." "I imagine there are." Diana walked to the window overlooking Kensington Gardens. "Mr. Fitzwilliam, did you really think I would just accept being thrown out of my home? That I would let you make my children pack up their lives because it was convenient? We believed the law was clear. The law was clear. You just didn't check thoroughly because you assumed I wouldn't fight back. That was your mistake. Not legal oversight, arrogance. You thought I was powerless." Gerald had no response. He left with a formal letter confirming her residency rights. That evening, Diana gathered William and Harry. "I have news about Richmond. We won't be moving there. We're staying here." Harry whooped with joy. William stared. "How?" "I found a legal precedent protecting my right to live here as your guardian. The courts agreed." William hugged her tightly. "You fought them and won." "We fought them and won," Diana corrected. "This is your home too. I wasn't going to let them take it." Later, alone in her study, Diana thought about the meeting where they'd handed her eviction papers, smiling at her humiliation. She thought about 6 months of research, legal battles, media attacks. She'd won, not because she had more money or connections, but because she'd done the work. She'd found the precedent they'd overlooked. She'd built a case they couldn't refute. The van in that other story had hidden gold. Diana's victory held something more valuable, proof that institutional power could be challenged and defeated, that thorough preparation could overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. Years later, when William became Prince of Wales, he would ensure Kensington Palace remained his mother's official residence. When asked why, he would say, "Because she fought for it. Because she proved it was hers. And because sometimes the most important thing you can do is stand your ground when powerful people try to take what matters most." The lawyers who had handed Diana eviction papers that February morning had laughed at her, confident in their power. They'd underestimated the determination of a mother protecting her home and her children. They were wrong. And their mistake became the story of how Princess Diana proved that sometimes the greatest victories come not from wealth or title, but from refusing to surrender what you know is rightfully yours.